Hey everyone, Mr. MC here. Welcome to round 1 of the 2023 Toyota Gazoo Racing GT Cup, taking place at Fuji International Speedway with the Toyota Sprinter Trueno and the Corolla Levin AE86. So for this race, if you're in GT 2 or 3 leagues, this is a 6-lap race, whereas if you're in the GT1 league, it's a 12-lap race using fully stock Toyota Sprinter Trueno and Corolla Levin AE86. We're on the comfort medium tires. It's a great start with a false start check, and the fuel and tire multipliers are both at ×1. And before I move on with the lap guide, there's something important I want to mention, and it's that the GT1 settings are a bit different from GT2 and 3 settings. So with GT1 settings, the races are generally longer than GT2 and 3. The tire multiplier is on for the qualifier, and there are less time slots that the GT1 players can enter, that number being 3. Whereas with GT2 and 3 players, they have less laps to do, but they have more time slots to do, and the tire wear is off during the qualifier. So I'll try to make the guide for both of the settings, but luckily for this round, the settings are pretty straightforward, so the basic strategy for this race will apply to both race settings. And finally, this is a 7-round championship with the best 4 rounds counting. But anyways, let's go ahead and get started with the lap guide. Do take note of the wind direction and speed, as that can affect where exactly you need to brake, so do take that into account as you do your qualifying and the race. I'm in the Sprinter Trueno as it looks cooler. The Levin and the Trueno, they perform the same, so pick whichever one you like more. But anyways, use every single rev that this car has, staying on the left side of the track, and you're braking just as you pass the 150 meter board. You're going to quickly shift down to 3rd gear, wait just a little bit as you get closer to your turning point, which is the 50 meter board. Then shift down to 2nd gear, as that will make the weight of the car shift forward, and you can whip the car around the apex of the first turn. And as you hit the apex, you want to carefully get on the throttle to avoid getting any unnecessary wheel spin, and slowly accelerate your way out. Then bring yourself towards the right. You're braking at around the 85 meter mark, so before this orange marker that is on the right, brake hard for a short moment. Then turn in, that way you're trying to get the weight of the car to shift forward and just try to whip the car around this turn. But as you go through 100R, when you're approaching this path that is on the right, that's when you want to lift off of throttle, staying on 4th gear, and just trying to get as close as you can to this path that is on the right, and try to bring yourself towards the right side of the track as you're braking at around the 75 meter mark, which is this orange marker that is on the right. You're turning in at the 50 meter board, going down to 3rd gear, easing off of the brakes as you're turning in, so doing a bit of trail braking, and as you hit the apex, quickly get on the throttle. Then stick to the right for 300R, and you want to eventually make your way towards the left side of the track, and you're going to brake right as you go under the big done up sign. So full braking power, quickly shifting down to 2nd gear, and this will make the car want to turn in a bit more. Turning in when you reach the white marker on the left. Try to keep your left wheels on the red and white curves, as that will make sure you don't get a track penalty. A little bit of throttle control as you go through the chicane, trying to get the car pointing towards the bollard, and that's when you want to fully get on the throttle. Bring yourself towards the left. You're braking just as you pass the end of the grass that is on the left, and you're just dabbing on the brakes, so trying to maintain your momentum. A little bit of throttle control as you go through this turn. When the curb on the left is just about to end, this is where you start to turn in a bit, but lift off of throttle and use just a little bit of braking to try to set yourself up for a late apex, staying on 3rd gear for the rest of the lap. And just as you pass the path that is on the right, this is going to be a bit similar as to the last turn, where you want to use just a little bit of braking, trying to set yourself up for a late apex and get on the throttle as soon as you hit the apex. And again, just rev the heck out of this car, and as I mentioned earlier, do take into account the wind direction and speed during your time trial, qualifying, and the race, as that can affect where you need to exactly brake and how the car handles throughout the lap. So you might need to make a couple of adjustments to make sure that you don't overshoot a turn, because the wind direction and speed is different from what you're seeing here. But anyways, let's go to the race strategies, where it's a 12-lap race for GT1 players, 6 laps for GT2 and 3 players, and this race is a grid start with a false start check. I'll explain a bit more about it at the very end of the video, since I do need to show an example for those who don't know what the heck that's all about. But it's a great start with a false start check. We are only on comfort medium tires with ×1 fuel, ×1 tire wear, so for all 3 GT leagues, it's a pretty straightforward 0-stop race. And there's going to be a lot of shenanigans, as these cars are pretty slow. It's not going to be the easiest to get an overtake done, so get ready to deal with people getting a bit aggressive on you. So get ready to defend your spot if you need to. And if there's one thing that you absolutely need to remember from this video, is don't get track penalties. Just don't get penalties, because you serve the penalties on the main straight, and even a half-second penalty can be catastrophic, because it takes about 10 years to get up to speed with these cars. So you definitely don't want to get any sort of penalties, because that will definitely kill your momentum, and that could potentially put your entire race in jeopardy. And don't forget that when you're starting a race, you're on cold tires, so do drive a bit more carefully during your first lap, or I'll even say your first 2 laps. That way your tires gradually warm up and give you a bit more grip. You don't want to push way too much on the first lap, and before you know it, you're understeering off the track because your tires are still pretty cold and there's no grip available just yet. And with this long main straight and these slow cars, Slipstream is going to be pretty useful here, so you can use it to try to work with other cars, doing a bit of bump drafting if it's appropriate, and you can use that to try to catch up to the next group of cars, or you can use a Slipstream to set yourself up for an overtake and try to get the pass done as you're getting ready to brake for turn number 1. So this main street will basically be the place to try to go for a move, but I would highly suggest making sure that you can make the move work and make the move stick, because if you don't make it work, as I'm drifting around turn 1, if you don't make the move work, you're going to start to fight it out with other cars, and that's going to cost you a lot of time. So if you're going to make a move, make it fast and make it clean. And gonna skip on over towards the end of lap 6, so this is pretty much the end of the race for those in GT2 and 3 leagues. This race will be around 13.5 to 14 minutes long. The exact total time that I'm gonna get is a 13 minutes and 40 second run, with my fastest lap of 2:15.996. So for those in the GT2 and 3 leagues, it's a pretty straightforward 0-stop race. For those in the GT1 league, it's still a straightforward 0-stop race, except you have to do another 6 laps. So just keep driving around, revving the heck out of this car, yelling "Kanze Dorifto" as you go through some of these turns, hopefully not getting involved in any shenanigans. So we're gonna go ahead and skip over towards the end of the race. So the end of lap 12 for those in the GT1 league and getting a half-second track penalty, but we're not going to talk about that, other than don't get him. But for those in the GT1 league, this is going to be around a 27-minute to 27.5-minute race. My fastest lap time was a 2:15.93. I think that's a 9. The numbers look small on my screen, but getting a 27 minutes and 18-second run without counting the penalty, so around 27 to 27.5 minutes for those in the GT1 league. That's how long this race will take. Fuel was not an issue at all, tire was not an issue at all. Alright, so before I go, I do want to talk about the grid start with false start check. So for those who don't know what this is, when it comes to a false start check, you're given these lights on top of the screen, and they eventually fill up with the red light. Once all the lights are filled up, they eventually go off. Once those lights go off, that's your signal to go. But as you're waiting for the lights to go off, you need to either keep your foot on the brake or hold the handbrake. That way your car doesn't move before the lights go off, because if you do a false start, you're going to get penalized, and that's really going to hurt your start of the race. So what I'm going to do, I'm holding the handbrake and pressing on the gas, but I'm not moving because I have the handbrake on. The moment the lights go off, that's when I let go of the handbrake and off I go. So I just want to make that clear in case someone doesn't know what the false start check is, or if they need a refresher on what that is. So hopefully that helps you out. But that's going to be it for this guide. Hopefully this guide helps you out in preparing for the race. Good luck for those doing this race. And that's all for me. So quick thank you for those watching this video. Quick thank you to the channel members as well. This is Mr. MC8, the world's most okay player, and I'll see you in the next video.